The story takes place in a bustling metropolitan city, a place where the rush of daily life is relentless. People are always in a hurry, rushing through crowded streets, rushing through their own personal problems. It is a city that thrives on ambition, greed, and competition. The main setting is a corporate office building, a busy cafe, and the streets of downtown. Chapter 1: The Corporate Shark. Derek Saunders is the epitome of success. At 32, he's the youngest senior executive at Payback Solutions, one of the leading tech firms in the city. His colleagues admire him, but there is one thing about Derek that most don't know: he's ruthless. Derek doesn't care about the small people. To him, it's all about the deal, the profit, and rising to the top by any means necessary. Every day, Derek manipulates situations, takes credit for others' work, and undermines anyone he sees as competition. His cold, calculating demeanor has earned him many enemies, but they don't dare speak up. Derek's rise has been meteoric, and he is always one step ahead, using others for his personal gain. Chapter 2: The Last-Minute Decision. It's Thursday afternoon, and Derek's day is packed. He's about to close a major deal with a potential client, one that will ensure his promotion to the company's board of directors. But there's a hitch in his plan. His assistant, Sarah, is preparing a report with crucial figures for the presentation, and she's running late. Derek, already agitated, calls Sarah into his office. As she enters, flustered and apologetic, he takes one look at her and snaps, "I told you, Sarah, this is critical. You've wasted enough of my time already." His eyes narrow. "If you can't even get this right, I'll have no choice but to find someone who can." Sarah, looking defeated, stammers an apology, but Derek interrupts. He hands her a pile of papers. "I don't have time to babysit you. Get it done, or don't bother coming back." Sarah's face flushes as she nods silently, knowing Derek has just put her career on the line. But despite his harsh words, she holds back tears. She leaves the office, trying to compose herself, knowing her job is at risk. Chapter 3: A Change in Fate. Later that evening, as Derek walks out of the office building to catch a cab, he's on top of the world. The deal is practically in the bag, and with it, his promotion. He's already thinking of the party he'll throw to celebrate. As he steps onto the curb, he notices a man walking briskly toward him, distracted by his phone. Derek, who is walking with his usual arrogance, doesn't move out of the way and purposely bumps into the man's shoulder. The man stumbles back, nearly dropping his phone. "Watch where you're going," Derek growls, barely pausing. The man, looking up with a confused expression, offers a weak apology, but Derek is already walking away, annoyed that anyone would dare stand in his way. Little does he know, the man he just bumped into is Ethan, a software developer who is also looking for a job and happens to know a little bit about karma. Chapter 4: The Price of Arrogance. The next morning, Derek arrives at the office in a good mood, still basking in the glow of his success. He enters his office, ready to finalize the deal with the client. As he sits down at his desk, he checks his phone and sees an urgent email from Sarah. Her subject line reads, "I'm sorry, I can't work here anymore." His heart sinks. Sarah had been reliable and competent in the past. He immediately opens the email, only to read her resignation letter, explaining that she could no longer work in such a toxic environment. She mentions how Derek's harsh treatment made her feel worthless and how she couldn't bear the stress anymore. She thanks him for the opportunities he gave her but says she needs to leave for her own well-being. Derek's anger flares up. "Unbelievable," he mutters, slamming his fist on the desk. Sarah was the only one who truly knew how to get things done, and now she's gone. He begins to formulate a plan to get back at her, to show her she made a mistake. But before he can do that, his phone rings. It's the client. Chapter 5: The Instant Karma. The meeting with the client starts off smoothly. Derek, feeling confident, begins to pitch the deal, but his presentation is nowhere near as polished as he had hoped. His slides are out of order, and some of the data is wrong. He stumbles through the presentation, trying to cover up his mistakes with charisma, but the client's interest begins to wane. The silence in the room grows thicker with each passing moment. Suddenly, his phone buzzes. Derek excuses himself and steps out of the meeting, answering it in frustration. It's the head of HR, telling him that Sarah's resignation has been accepted and that she's already sent over her final reports, including the critical numbers for the deal. Derek's heart sinks further when he realizes that Sarah was the one who had prepared the figures, and without her, he had nothing to rely on. His carefully crafted deal begins to unravel as he's unable to fix the errors on the spot. The client starts asking more pointed questions, exposing the cracks in his presentation. The deal falls apart, and the client politely but firmly walks away. Derek is left standing in the meeting room, feeling defeated. Chapter 6: The Moment of Truth. As Derek returns to his office, defeated and angry, he is intercepted by his manager, who asks him about the deal's failure. Derek tries to explain, but his manager simply looks at him with disappointment. "I'm afraid, Derek, your behavior has caught up with you. We can't have people like you at the top," the manager says flatly. "I've had complaints about your attitude, and now this. You're not being promoted to the board." Chapter 7: The Reflection. Derek spends the rest of the day in his office, unable to shake the feeling of having everything slip through his fingers. His arrogance and mistreatment of Sarah, along with the small interactions like bumping into Ethan, had led to this moment. He couldn't help but feel as if life had delivered him the harshest lesson possible. As he walked home that evening, he passed by a street performer playing a soulful tune on his guitar. For the first time, Derek noticed the beauty in the sound, the joy of the performer's music. He felt the weight of his actions on his shoulders as the sweet melody echoed in his mind, the realization sinking in: karma had come to collect. The next morning, Derek called Sarah. He didn't expect a reconciliation, but he knew he had to apologize. When Sarah picked up, Derek, for the first time in years, sounded sincere. "I've been a jerk, Sarah. And I'm sorry," he said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "I hope you'll forgive me." There was a pause on the line before Sarah replied, "I'm glad you finally realize it, Derek. I hope you change." Derek sighed, understanding now that the price of his success had been too high. And as he sat quietly in his office, he knew this moment was just the beginning of a long journey toward redemption, one that he had to earn, starting with the small act of kindness. Karma had given him a second chance,